Good day, everyone. I'm IAD Bound,
And I'm Felix.
and welcome to another episode of Wheels Up Live. We thank you all for joining us, and we're very excited to be back. Sorry that we were
Yes,
gone
we
for a
are.
little bit, just life things getting in the way. So I do
Yes.
apologize for that, but we're very excited to be here with you. Um,
Yeah,
so as
I'm
all
excited too. It's good to be back.
Yeah, it's kind of, just a little electric for it. As we were getting ready here, I was thinking, oh, it feels good, get back into the groove.
Yeah.
So, as always, we're going to start with our news of the week. And the news of the week is that the TFDI MD11, a long awaited tri-jet, has in fact released. And obviously, that is big news for the
Big news.
community. And
Mhm.
we are, pretty excited about that coming out. And let's get our image here for those of you who have forgotten what it looks like. There it is, the beast. Uh,
Yes.
so Felix has sort of been our point person, if you will, on this product for us. We are both collector's edition owners, but I won't lie, I have not flown it that much. The few times that I have, though, particularly in recent times, have been pretty positive. But now that it's out, Felix, what's your take on how things are going with it?
The community reception I've seen from at least from the Discord, some of the Facebook posts, some of the things like that, um, with with kind of regards to how it's been received, it's mixed. I think people have heard me clamor on about how it wasn't ready. That was apparently true because a lot of people, and the chief complaint we all said, which was the artwork, a lot of people were not very satisfied with the artwork. I think the
Yep.
systems architecture, I think the actual flying part of it, people were generally satisfied with. I think a lot of users who complained on a systems level, um, we're a little bit more of the edge case user. They're getting a little bit deeper into the system, or they may have a little bit more knowledge of the aircraft. I think A to B right now, it's fine. They just released an update 1.07, I believe. I haven't flown it since it's released, but the people who have flown it said the hand flying, especially in pitch, because pitch authority was kind of the big bugaboo of the add-on for a while. And actually, I even got a comment that somebody's like, "Oh man, the pitch is good, but it's almost might be going in the other direction." One of the other key things to note is on the artwork. Colin did say in the Discord, I think it was last week, that they've hired somebody, a technical 3D artist. Apparently, they have hired somebody, and they are going to make a V2 that'll be a free update. And those are his words. That's not my paraphrasing. I should
Right.
have grabbed the Discord snippet of it, but that's what he said. So they obviously have heard the community. They've heard the concerns, and I'll just say on a personal note, my gripe with this add-on is I don't believe it's a scam. I don't think any of the CE owners who got it ever have believed it was a scam. I think our disappointment comes in the fact that we have given them honest feedback, and in a lot of instances, they've chosen to kind of go away from that. They've chosen not to listen to it. And where we could have avoided any of the pitfalls of the add-on getting into the larger community and then people having negative things to say about it, there was kind of a, you know what, we're just launching the ship anyway, even if it's got, holes in it, or whatever, right? I guess to kind of use a jumbled analogy there, but I just think that, for right now, point A to B, it's okay. I think it does the job, right? And they've updated it, and they're going to continue to update it. I think when they
Right.
say that, when you see in Discord or when you see in any of the communications, they say, "Hey, just because it's released doesn't mean we're gonna just kind of let it float on its own out in the sea." That's not how they're treating it. However, I guess maybe this is more of a community gripe and a trend that we've seen. where add-ons are releasing in kind of a premature state. I think another add-on that comes to mind are like the FSS E-jets.
Oh
Not
yeah,
saying, by the way, this is like apples and oranges. At
right.
least the TFDI had all the core system components it needed. Those were there. What the aircraft has to do an A to B flight, that was there on day one. It just might not be
Yeah,
perfect, and unlike the E-jets, where like the E-jets don't have VNAV, things like that. But I think more that my point is about the trend, right? We're
yeah.
seeing this trend of developers that are saying, hey, let's just release it because the public wants it. And it's like, I don't think that's right. But then again, I also understand that you can't be in a development um, abyss, right? You can't be in
Correct.
limbo forever developing a product. And so I get that. But again, I think if they would have spent an extra 30 to 60 days on the add-on, I think it would have been a lot. There would have been a much better reception from the community on the add-on than there has kind of been, where it's kind of been mixed. I would say, although apparently they've done pretty well because they've already said they've gone ahead and hired somebody, um, and there's been a lot of, as you put it, Dulles. You've seen a lot of kind of like really excitement and kind of excited
Definitely.
energy regarding the add-on.
And,
So,
and
and at the end of the day, ultimately, this is another long haul aircraft. If you're not a Boeing person, or maybe you want to find something new to try out.
or
So
something old if you like an older
yeah, because
plane
that's
too.
what this is. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's a
this is
lot of
new to you.
people.
It's like a used car. It's like a used car. It's new to you.
Well, but I mean, there are a lot of people who do like who do prefer some of the older aircraft, even though this is a pretty technologically advanced aircraft. I mean, it's not like it isn't,
Yeah,
but
when you get down to the nuts and bolts, it's very
you're right.
advanced.
But looking where it is in its life cycle as a real, as a real world
Yeah,
plane, it's on its way out and not its way in, and so that it draws a certain attention too. I have seen quite a bit of enthusiasm for it coming out. We saw on the day that it released that the servers were jammed and they were struggling a little bit at TFDI, which is usually a good sign, I think, from most developers' perspectives in terms of the amount of business that they're doing. We saw when they announced it for the collector's edition that 1,000 copies sold in a few hours, or basically a day, but a very short period of time. I expect that they've done pretty well here, and I certainly hope they have. And
yeah,
as you said, they've brought someone on, and I think I had the opportunity to talk to Colin and Fabio right before the release at Expo, and I think that they were feeling a lot of excitement and yeah, probably a little nervous too about how these things would go once it was out in the wild. But now it is, and I guess the good news is based on, for example, the artwork, updates that are coming, things that they're saying. This is their focus. They don't. It's not like they have another product right now that they're at least saying that they're working on. Unlike,
yeah.
say, PMDG, sometimes where they're working on something else, and sometimes you wonder if they're going to get back to the thing they said they were going to get back to. And we've already seen people asking the question like, well, hey, when am I getting updated nav data and LNAV work for the 737? When is that being
I
ported
asked it.
back? Yeah, but I mean, when is it being ported back?
Yeah, absolutely.
Stuff like that. Where my guess is it's a ways off. Okay, well, speaking of updates, one plane that's actually been out since the end of last year, but just got another major update, is the AnyBuilds A300 600. And I have to say that I think that's another good sign of how the development process is going, because we are seeing from AnyBuilds and other devs too that they are constantly evaluating their products. I think they recognize that there are a lot of people who haven't bought whatever it is they sell and are trying to keep continued interest going with that. This update it's a big update. So it focused primarily on fixes, which is sort of natural. But the other thing that they spent a lot of time on was to make some big updates to SID and star handling. They made a lot of work on WASM crash issues, which unfortunately sort of plague everyone. They have focused in particular on squeezing out some more performance from the A300, which is, one of the knocks for this plane compared to some other planes is that performance is perhaps, not as strong as some others. And they have squeezed what I took to be about 5 frames per second average improvement, which is, nothing to scoff at, particularly if you're on the margins. If you were getting 30 and now you're getting 35, or you're getting 25 and now you're getting 30, that gives you some breathing room in terms of how the
Yeah,
thing performs.
it's very usable, right, at that point. So
100%. And you and I both know, you and I both are very friends with someone who really loves the A300 and flies it quite a bit. I've been flying it quite a bit myself, and there's a couple of things that are
yeah,
really great about this plane. One is that it hand flies really nicely.
yes,
It sometimes people say I want to sort of feel the weight of the plane. Well, it's a little hard to define, but it gives you a solid, steady feeling when you're working with it
yes,
that I appreciate. Taxis nicely, and there's just a good feel of quality in the cockpit,
yeah,
in particular, in terms of how they've laid things out. It's not necessarily a plane that you're going to get into, V1 cuts and a bunch of crazy stuff like that, but it's a nice plane to fly. And
yeah.
I've been happy with the update. I don't know if you've had a chance to try it yet, but
I mean, A300 is not really my thing. I'm more 767 guy if you're going to talk about that era of
sure,
aviation. So that's kind of what I'm waiting for. But no, I mean, our mutual friend High Ping, he flies the crap out of the thing.
he does.
And he loves it. And, I trust his opinion, a very, very informed opinion on these things. And yeah, when I flew it, and this was way back when it first released, I thought it hand flew nicely then.
Yeah, still
I
does.
know I had that picture. I don't know if we were going to include it or not, but they also updated some of the lateral pathing logic,
I,
especially in the
I did not
holds.
I did not bring that one in, but yes, they did work on that
Yeah, and
significantly.
so that was kind of one of the things they were highlighting was the lateral pathing, specifically for holds,
Yep.
which it seems like they've tightened up, especially with like the parallel and the teardrop entries, which those two are super. Those are kind of really really difficult to get into, especially that teardrop.
Yeah.
It
And
was good to see that's where they they put a lot of energy and effort and focus, and it's good to see that they're like you said, they really want to get into um, the kind of the just kind of making the airplane better, right? Which is
yeah,
ultimately, I know they got a lot of flack for abandoning X plane. The other thing I want to add is I know that I think there may be an update in the pipeline for X plane 12, but it's not going to be. They're not really going to add anything, but they are going to kind of clean it up and fix it and make it
I believe they have
stable.
mentioned
So
that. Yes. Also,
yeah,
they've also updated a couple of their sceneries that they hadn't made any changes
yes,
to for a while. Again,
yeah.
focusing a
Hmm.
lot on FPS improvements, which I think is another
Yeah, I
positive.
remember that's I mean that was kind of my thing with their was the FPS. So it seems like they really are hitting on the performance piece. Which is important when you're simming. I think it's probably
Yeah.
one of the most important things when you're simming because a sucky frame rate it kind of takes the life out of the sim. So
And I sort of put it in this category. It's for me, the frame rate is not my number one requirement. My number one requirement is smoothness. It's stuttering
yes,
that drives
yeah,
me bananas. But if you're getting
yes,
good solid frames, there's a high probability that you're going to be in a position where stutters are not a big problem for you. And I think so. For me, right now, for example, I've been playing around with keeping my system so that like 60 FPS is the max. And it isn't strictly necessary, but I have found that it works pretty well, along with, and I strongly encourage people to do this from time to time, going back and clearing every known cache out. DirectX, NVIDIA shaders, rolling cache, scenery index, once in a while. That definitely made a difference for me because I was having some what I thought was less than optimal performance. And in talking with some folks, they said, maybe just try the whole sequence, and I did, and it definitely helped. Speaking of any builds, I'm gonna go slightly out of sequence here. Speaking of any builds, uh, one of the other things that happened since we've seen you all last was that any builds put out a couple of previews, albeit very small, of the
Oh my gosh, what's
A350.
that? It's a wing.
It's a wing. It's a bird. It's a plane.
Mm,
You know what I
That's
have to
right.
say is at least it wasn't a picture of the goddamn landing gear. Okay, there we go. Thank you, PMDG,
Yeah,
and your landing gear nonsense. I can't take it anymore.
yeah.
Sorry, just didn't know. But yes, they put out the couple of preview pictures. Here's one, for
Yes, they did.
example, and here's another, and yes, still looks like a wing. Uh, but the other big news with the AnyBuilds A350 is that tomorrow at 1500 UTC, we are going to have a developer Q&A,
Beautiful.
and they have asked people for questions as well, and I expect that we are going to hear probably quite a bit about what they are doing with the A350. So, I mean, I think for most of us, this is probably the most anticipated release for the second half of
Yeah.
2024, assuming it makes it out by the end of the year.
Yeah, excuse me. I think
No
they're
problem.
I think they are I don't know. I'm not on their inside on the inside or anything, but I think that they tried to push the A300 to the end of the year around Christmas because remember December 31st, 2024 is still 2024, and I think that's kind
That's
of the
right.
mentality they go with,
It's okay.
and that's okay. I think just these kind of renders and these screenshots, you see the obviously Delta. Um, I think on their I remember on the because I don't frequent their Discord because it's kind of a mess.
Right. It's
If
very
anything, they
busy in
need to
there.
fix
Yes.
it's
I
their
don't read their
it's
Discord
it's
much
their
myself.
yeah. But I remember when I was on there and they announced the 350. I think the ULR, so that's the one that Singapore has. I think that's one of the ones they want to include, which is huge. I mean, although only Singapore uses it, but
Right.
it'll allow you to do what's now currently the longest flight in the world, which is
Right.
from Singapore eastbound to JFK,
JFK.
and
Yeah.
so and JFK and Newark. So I think they alternate. It might be a fuel thing. I don't know, but they either do JFK or they do Newark, or it might be a gate slot thing too, depending on the time of
I'm
year.
not
They may
sure.
not be able to get a slot at either airport, but um, no, it's the we're gonna learn more. Obviously,
Right.
I would doubt that they're gonna do a release date, but
No, I
maybe they'll
can't.
give a
I can't see.
window.
I can't see a release date. I think
Yeah,
they're just going to say 2024. But I think what we might hear is what they're going for. And I think we were just talking about it with the A300 update, right? Like improving some of the lateral path work.
yeah,
That's complicated work. I imagine
hmm
it's the kind of thoughtful approach, or hopefully thoughtful approach, that
yeah,
they're going to be taking to the A350. I think they want this to be kind of putting down a marker for
yeah.
any belts. That's my
I
impression.
I yeah, I get that sense too. I think they want this to not only be a flagship product. I think they want this to be kind of a pivot or a shift in how they're approaching the simulation piece of it.
Exactly.
I think they're going to get a little. I think they're going to get a little bit more in depth, nuts and bolts, even above the A300. I think they're trying to
Oh
go
yeah.
for a PMDG level. Maybe a little bit, more than that. Who knows? But I think that's kind of their target. Obviously, this is technically a comparable aircraft, right? Because they
Possibly
kind of
even more
operate
so.
in the
The A350 is
yeah
a mighty
they
complex
operate
aircraft.
yeah it is and so yeah exactly. I don't think um if you're in the sim space and you have been for a long time and you're also in the aviation space and you kind of understand what's going on with the A350. This is kind of a next generation of aviation. This
Yeah.
this is where this is it. This is where we're going. Like this aircraft is basically this is just a window into where airliners are going to head to in the future. I mean, we're talking about things like break to vacate. The fact that the onboard information system runs off of basically a custom Windows 10 model,
Right.
and that sort of thing. So you kind of get into this realization that, like, even though the 787's modern, it's not this modern. And
No.
so they really have decided to aim high. And I think they have to. Like, in my opinion, my personal opinion, this can't be like the A300. This has got to be a step above, because this is a very highly community anticipated aircraft. Excuse me. And the only other iteration of it we have is kind of I'll just say it. It's a half-ass collaboration.
It
Basically,
is.
the only thing that made it better was Tullus, the Flight Factor A350. If anybody doesn't know what I'm talking about, that originally came out in X-Plane 10. Tullus ended up doing the systems piece, and that's honestly the best part of it.
Right. And even then, although Tolis,
And even then, it's
yeah, they've announced they're going to do an update. Who knows what that's going to be or
yeah,
when. But I do think, and that'll be for X-Plane. But I do think that for the any build situation, I mean, this is a major undertaking to put an
yep,
A350 together. And whatever they do put together is obviously going to roll over to the A380 when they put that out,
yep,
because system-wise they're very similar. And I think that they put a huge challenge in front of them, and they're a
yes,
big team. I think that they are seem like a sharp bunch of folks from the people that we know and have met and talked to from
yep.
any builds, and I think that this may be their moment. We'll see. They've got a big challenge in front of them. I think another thing that could be really interesting with the A350 is how much is it? Will we be looking at a more
I think
expensive
they've
plane?
hinted that it's going to be a little bit more expensive.
Right. But I mean, more expensive than
My
the
personal guess,
A300, that's fine. Is
my
it?
my personal guess is probably 65, 70 euros.
Yeah, I was going to
This is
say
a personal
70.
guess.
Yeah, 70 or maybe, yeah, $70 maybe, $80. Uh
Well, it'll be $80 for us,
right.
because they do euros
Right.
or
Or
pounds. They
pounds.
don't even
They're
do
in
euros.
pounds.
They do
Right.
pounds.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
hard to tell exactly where it's going to fall, but obviously that's a long ways off. But I think it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see where it comes in, to see how they view its position in the market as well.
Yeah.
Because I think I expect that the A350 is going to be a mass market item. It should be. Every modern airline is sought after. You look at the excitement that people have for what we're going to talk about in a moment, the fly-by-wire A380, and you got to think that the A350 is going to be snapped up by almost everyone as long as it's a solid offering. I've
Yeah.
got my
And
fingers
that's all it
crossed.
really has to be, by the way. It just has to be a solid offering.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be with the complexity of the A350. You kind of have to nail it, or people are going to be scratching their heads. That's my only thought. Because if you think about the flight factor, it doesn't really.
Yeah.
It just doesn't
That's
tick the
fair.
boxes.
That's fair, because
Right.
it's not an A350. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah,
That's
because I
fair.
mean the A300 is a little bit more of a bare bones plane. It's not literally bare bones, of course, but it's a little bit more bare bones. And so
Yeah.
you expect some quirks and this and that and the other thing. An A350 is it's a modern precision aircraft that way. So
I think my biggest thing, and probably where it'll get a lot of maybe flack, and hopefully 2024 addresses this, is so they have a 3D depiction of weather, which I
yeah,
think, so you can use it. It's all 3D obviously all the time, but normally when you have a weather radar depiction, it's just 2D on 2D, right? And so, like, if you traditional aircraft, you're just seeing kind of the precipitation in the area, and hey, don't fly there, right?
right.
Well, the A350, they have it in the vertical situation display, where you can actually see the top and the bottom of it. I think that's the coolest thing. It's tactically, in when you're talking about situational awareness in a tactical sense, I think
Sure.
that's one of the coolest things you could ever see. So
Well, I guess the good news is Any Builds obviously has a direct pipeline to Asobo, so hopefully somebody's trying to figure out how to
yeah,
make that work. Um, All right, so we were going to talk. We're already coming up on 25 minutes past the hour here, but we had a couple of other quick items we're going to talk about. One was PMDG 777 has had a couple of updates. I don't think we'll belabor it, but I think what we've seen is one of the big criticisms out of the gate was a number of people were unhappy with sounds. They've obviously done some work on that. I'm not hearing as much complaining, so maybe that's a success. I just perhaps my ears are just not as good as somebody else, or perhaps uh, there's a lot of focus on a certain group of sounds that nobody knows what the heck it sounds like
I
anyway.
think the
But
biggest the
I could be
biggest
wrong.
complaint was I think the biggest complaint was the takeoff. The engine start and the takeoff. People are saying it was missing the growl. And
Okay.
so, including our very own Yas, Yas was saying he was like, "Yeah, this is missing. It's I think this could be improved."
All right. Well,
And
Yas,
so I
I'll
was
trust
like,
on
"Oh,
that.
okay,
I think they have improved
yeah,
it. Correct me if I know that's one of the things they had on
they
their
have,
list. Yeah.
yes, they've definitely."
Now, speaking of which, so in addition to PMDG providing an update to the 777, there's a new
Hmm.
add-on for the 777 as well, and that
Yes.
is from Parallel 42, and it's their 777 immersion package. And if I have done this correctly, we're going to see it here in a moment.
There we go.
Notice how I'm not actually promising that we'll see it. Here we go.
Oh,
Except
look
we
at
don't
that,
have the
beautiful.
sound. There we go. There's the sound.
Yeah,
Oh my, that's
I don't know
loud.
if we needed.
Okay, I'm gonna turn that
Yeah,
down
I
just a
don't
little
know if we
bit.
needed sounds.
Right.
But, these effects are really good. Okay, that's my favorite thing. That's one of the greatest things I've ever seen. As far as like in the sim,
Yeah.
that looks so good.
Wastewater drain. Oh
I guess.
boy.
Ooh. Hey, look, it's you landing in London, BAV.
Right. Exactly. It's a little smoother than my approach, but that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man, look at that! I didn't even
Wow.
see this part with the brake smoke, and I knew about the contrails and everything now, but it's really good stuff. So
Well, there you
I
are.
hope it was tailored to the 777.
Right. Because that's going to get pretty awkward if it wasn't.
Yeah.
Well, here's my that looked very cool, and you can always make it
It
look.
did, yeah.
And I'm of the mind if you can't make it look good in a trailer, it's never going to look very good. Uh,
Sure, sure.
but I do sort of wonder. Oh, I've just blocked myself completely there. That was nice.
You have.
Yeah, it's fine. If you can't make it look good in the trailer, the one problem I have sometimes with these kinds of items, and of course they had these immersion packages for P3D as well, so they're sort of continuing
Hmm.
on in that tradition. Who, by the way, our friend Raul is one of the people who worked on immersion packages back in the
Yeah.
day. The one concern I have with any of those is the pile on of add-ons. We love as flight simmers, I think, to add more stuff, have more options, use more
Yeah.
things at the same time. And it's somewhere down the line when your sim's performing badly, when the thing is frozen, when something crashes, and you say, this plane's unflyable. And the first question that comes out of somebody's mouth is, well, are you using this add-on or that add-on or another add-on? And lo and behold,
Yeah.
they are. And shock of all shocks, when you uninstall them, the plane actually works. So
Sure.
that's one concern I continue to have. I kind of struggle with that balance because you want all the bells and whistles, but at the same time, you don't want to, cause more trouble
I
than it's
never
worth.
had an issue with immersion, and I've
Yeah,
got 747 immersion. I've got seven. The only
yeah,
issues I had with the immersion is that they would sometimes stay on. So I would be taxiing or something, and like I'd have like the condensation wing effect like on takeoff, but I'm only going like 15, 20 knots down the taxiway or
right,
something like that,
right.
something really silly. But all you have to do is shut it off, recycle it, and it's not a big deal.
Uh,
As far as performance, I've never really seen a performance hit. And I think
right.
a lot of these things are stuff that can be done in the
Well,
sim.
and
So
just to be clear, I mean, I'm not saying this particular one's a problem, but just the notion of sort of the
I know what
pile
you're talking
on.
about.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Well, I mean, you also, by the way, for those of you who want it, you also have to get Flow. You can't
I do
just.
have flow.
It's not standalone. No, 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 no.
Oh,
I'm this PSA.
oh,
You know,
right. Oh, not
it's
flow. You need SimFX. SimFX.
SimFX. That's what it
Right,
is. I'm
SimFX.
sorry.
Sorry.
You need a SimFX to get this running. So,
Yeah.
just kind of a little service note on that.
All right. So another big, or not a big, but another thing that you may not have seen and which has come along in the
Well, it
last
is
couple
kind
of
of
weeks.
big, but
Oh, it is big. That's true. Good point.
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
perhaps it isn't getting as much big attention. Is that our friends at Fly by Wire? And I say our friends. I don't actually know anyone at Fly by Wire, but okay. Fly by Wire have another preview of the A380. All right, and again, we're going to make the grand
Video
play
was
here
created by Mike. Big shout out to him because it's an amazing
to
effort
show you
that he
this.
did. And so this is in San Francisco. I think
I've seen
one
that
of the
San
latest
Francisco
sceneries
before.
that came out recently.
Let's make it familiar.
And we'll be jumping in the cockpit. So right now we're walking into the
Look
cockpit,
at that.
and this is what it looks like if you go up close and start using it. If you want to see this in person, our booth, you can start using that. So now we're going to start the batteries, but I don't know if anybody else wants to jump in. Later on, I'll think other people will jump in. So we're using the batteries. There's 4 batteries in this system. It's a lot more heavy than an A320. It's a lot bigger. And we'll start the APU if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, no crap.
People will correct me if I'm wrong. And we're messing around a little bit with lighting because, gotta look good. So now we're going to jump into...
You hear some relays clicking, right?
All right. Well, you get the gist of it. So we have. Sorry, I cut them off a little bit. So we have the A380 coming from Fly by Wire. There are no release dates for this A380, and since it is a community project, it's always difficult to guess when you're sort of going to have access to a working version of this plane.
Sure.
Just don't know that we know.
I will say, I think maybe I don't know if the community. I should say the community should kind of tailor its expectations to the fact that it's free.
I
I
hope
think
so.
well, I mean, you kind of see how they get with the Microsobo A320 Neo. That was an AnyBuilds collab where people are like ready to tear down their walls because like, oh no, it's not that great. It's like, well, it's free. I don't know if AnyBuild's making a lot of money off of that. They get one time, and
Right. Yeah, it's
they're having to take assets. They're having to take development assets off of actual things that will make them money. In order to build that stuff. And yeah, it's contractual, but like, are they actually making any money off of it? It's a free product in the sim. There's no sales they're garnering after that, so it's a one-time fee. So it's one
so
of
we
these
would
things where
think.
it's like
Yeah.
I think, yeah. So we would think, yeah. I mean, unless MJ is a contractual genius and he's getting like royalties off of each
Well, they have a lot
copy.
of.
That's
Yeah, I kind of wonder since they seem to be getting more and more work from Microsoft, so
Yeah.
that's an element. Okay, I'm gonna switch quickly if you don't mind, Felix, since we are tight on time. I think we've got 2 business
Sure.
jet offerings
Yeah.
here from our friends at Flight FX. Little updates here. Here's the first one.
Look at that.
Felix, you're our business jet expert. What do we got here?
I like this is a Cessna 750, otherwise known as the Citation 10. Not the Citation X, Citation 10. But again, this is one of those ones we talked about earlier. They showed the Project APX, and now we know it's a Citation 10. It looks pretty far along.
Looks nice.
We both know somebody who is type rated in this aircraft, and they're very excited. Hopefully for this product to release. And it was at the time when it released the fastest biz jet. Mach 0.925. So, or there might even be 935. But it was fast. It's a fast jet, and for me personally, I think it's a looker. Some people cannot.
It's okay.
It's okay, but I think we're seeing a lot of I think we're seeing a lot more interest in the Part 91, Part 91K, Part 135 part of aviation, which would be these kind of jets, right? So jets for hire, jets for charter, people's personal private jets. I think some people like that kind of like idea of like, oh, we're gonna fly, and they honestly they allow you to fly anywhere you want as long as the runway can fit it in.
Sure.
And
Sure.
it's got I think it gives you, for people who kind of want to stay in the more realistic realm, it gives you a lot more options. And
Yeah.
I know you've got another product of theirs, and I don't want to
Yep. There we go.
wax poetic about
Oh,
the
there we go. There's our other product. There
so
we are.
there it is. This is the Piaggio. This is something actually I think a lot of people don't know about. It's if it's not the fastest, it's one of the fastest twin turboprops. It does like 400 knots true. It's fast, and it'll get up there too. It'll get to flight level like 410. I think is the service ceiling on it. So I remember another one of our pilot friends he'll be like, man, those people check in and they'll be at a higher altitude than I am, and he's in a transport category jet, and so it's a twin turbo prop. I call it the Italian catfish because it's got canards on the front. It it's kind of shaped like a catfish. But I think it's cool. These are pretty far along. I don't think they've really given any updates as far as release date, but expect to see this kind of later on this year for sure, and they'll be good additions for people who are looking for something a little different than an A320, 737, and I guess now 777 MD-11 if you want a different kind of flying for you. So
Sure. Sure. Well, so that wraps up our news segment, which, well, as per usual, we went a little long in the news, but we always enjoy that. So our feature is related to our mid-year review of where we
yeah,
are, and I think the question that immediately comes, at least to me, which I've now attempted to update here in our title editor with no success, is sort of have we reached, I know, it's technology, have we reached sort of peak MSFS?
yeah,
And I think as we look at this year, it's been a heck of a year so far. I mean,
sure,
just look at where we are so far this year. It's absolutely incredible. As I was thinking about this segment, I was just thinking about the planes that have already come out. So obviously we got big ones like the 777,
yeah,
the MD-11,
yep,
and then some of the announcements that we've seen and updates that we've gotten. So we've seen updates for the Bluebird 757, the 767, uh, the, the the announcement of their 787. Sorry,
yeah,
and we've got the 727 on the way.
yep. Literally this month, possibly.
Yeah,
It's looking close. Yeah.
right. Coming soon, and
Mm-hmm.
we have seen an explosion in third-party ATC offerings with Say Intentions, with Beyond ATC, and perhaps the thing that really, really struck me most in the past couple of weeks that we saw was that Jorg and Seb got up on the stage at FS Expo on Saturday and put the number up 15 million unique users of Microsoft Flight Simulator. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a staggering number. 15 million.
It's huge.
It's huge, to borrow a phrase from someone who's running for president. And so, you really have to ask yourself, or at least I do, what does this mean? Are we at sort of peak MSFS now, or is it only going to keep going? We've got 2024 coming, and there have been multiple previews now of that and further discussion of it. What's your take, Felix, in terms of our first half so far?
I mean, it's been pretty crazy. I mean, it's we've got the 727. You know, obviously Raul announced their 727, which they've already done, and that's going to be a 2024 exclusive. Well, at least moving forward. You know, we have a lot of we have a lot more. Like you said, we just have a lot more developers. I think we're seeing a huge just surge in people who are saying, you know what, this market is so vast that I can just cast my net or throw a line out there and hopefully somebody will grab. I mean, I just was reading on FS Elite that Field Air decided, hey, we're going to release Denver, even though Flightbeam has one. Hey, we're going to release Denver. You know what? Because they're thinking that maybe there's a user on Xbox or maybe there's somebody they don't need an exact photo replica of Denver, although they are working on the B terminal, so it's not or they may have completed it, but there really is there
right?
who could exactly a U.S. airport right under construction, who would have thought,
right? Exactly. Shocking.
So yeah, it's a real shock, but I think you have a lot of these developers. You have a lot of aircraft developers. Like, look at this. We went from 0 727s. We're going to have one possibly coming out the end of this month or the beginning of next month.
And there's another one in the works.
And we have there's another one in the works already.
Right. Yeah, right, exactly.
Look at the A380, right? Fly by wire, freeware. Hey, there's so much excitement. Any builds, it's like, we'll make a payware one. Who cares? You're either going to buy it or not. You're not. And I think they're willing to make that gamble and they're willing to make that risk. And I think it just kind of speaks to the viability of, the Microsoft market at this point in time. And like you said, I think, the first half of this year, you have huge announcements. You have releases. You have the 777 obviously being kind of the big release in that cycle. The latter half of this year is looking like it's going to be another big part of it. Possibly 757. So I think 2024 is going to be kind of the year. Like you said, it might be peak. It's certainly the peak of 2020.
Yeah.
Now, is it the peak of like the next generation of Microsoft Flight Sim games? I couldn't tell you that. Right. I'm more leaning towards it's kind of we're kind of at the kind of at the midway up the bell curve, if you will. I think there's a lot of room to grow in this hobby. If you've got 15 million unique users, obviously the sim, they went ahead and made the call that, hey, the sim isn't where we want it to be, so we're just going to make a new iteration of the sim. And yeah, of course, there's a financial incentive in doing that, right? You're going to get more people, charge more money. But I also think that there were technical aspects of the base of their game that they said, hey, this isn't going to work for where a lot of these developers are going. And I really think that the thing that we have seen from let's say August of 2020, because I think it released August of 2020, until now, right? July, we're almost literally almost 4 years, to the day that 2020 released. You can see that they have a lot more care and they have a lot more care and emphasis on the third-party developers. Whereas I've kind of said, through various places that I don't think when Asobo started, they understood the kind of place that the third-party developer has
right
in the community.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I think now we're starting to see like they're like, hey, maybe we're going to look at the weather API because they understand that people want something more than what even they want to offer. We're going to look at the camera API because, hey, we understand that people want chase plane because they really enjoy that. And, let's just be honest, the Microsoft Flight Simulator camera, the camera system is not great. It sucks. I've learned it and used it because we've been using it for how long? 4 years. But guess what? Like, it's still not good.
It's still not my favorite. It's still not my favorite.
It's not my favorite. And so, we're really getting to a space where I think we're seeing a lot of developers are willing to put in the time and energy and effort to make even the add-ons they want to make, right? If you look at P3D P3D didn't have a 747 Classic. P3D didn't have a 727, right? Because there really wasn't nobody wanted to take the time to make that because they felt, oh, that's niche. That's not going to make me any sort of money. So let's just make, maybe what we can go and see at another airport. But now you have developers that are like, hey, I'm going to make a Piaggio 180 Avanti. Who's heard of that, unless you're like an extreme like aviation nerd, right? So,
well, certainly we've seen the GA market people, plumbing all sorts of depths. I don't think most people were thinking about a Duke, but there's Black Square, and
no, I've never even heard of the Duke,
right?
And I'm pretty in tune with that.
Yeah, I mean, so so I thought here's where I was thinking, in terms of thinking this year. It's an interesting question for what it means for other sims too. So on the one hand, I think we can all safely say P3D is now moved into the same segment as if you were still running FSX or FS9. And there are still people running FSX and FS9. But P3D is effectively...
What's that guy, E Detroit? That people love the guys. The people love that guy, E Detroit. I've seen. He's I guess he's like done a lot of his own work on some of these add-ons to get him like super hyper realistic, and he's just still in Flight Sim 9. I think he's not even in FSX.
Sticking with that 32-bit simulator, right? But I think, so I think we can say P3D has kind of moved to the legacy position, even though they're still selling it and there's a V6 and they're still making updates. But I think as a practical matter, it's sort of gone onto the legacy side. And certainly for the developers who were working in the P3D market, they have all effectively moved to MSFS. We'll give TFDI a little kudos for making a new plane for P3D with the MD-11, although I think there's plenty of people who were involved in the CE process that were sort of wondering why they were bothering. But they've done it, and it's there. But as a practical matter, if they were going to start another plane today, they're not going to make it for P3D. So,
I still think it was a mistake.
That's fine, but I'm just saying they did it. But I think right. But all I'm saying is that today, if they were starting a new plane, it's not going to be they're not going to include a P3D version.
Sure. Sure.
So that means that the other counterbalance that's out there is X-Plane 12. And I think X-Plane, there continues to be active development for it. We've seen a lot of planes that have come from X-Plane 11 and been moved into X-Plane 12. I don't know that I'm not sure there are any X-Plane 12 only titles. But certainly a lot of developers have updated for X-Plane 12. I think perhaps our first real X-Plane 12 plane is the Flight Factor 777, which is coming. A lot of people were very wowed by the streams that they saw of the alphas of that plane. But I do wonder, overall, is it going to be a situation where X-Plane 12 survives, or X-Plane generally, and Laminar? I think the answer is yes. They've got commercial customers. They have a mobile app, so plainly, or a mobile version. So plainly, there's a market for them. I think that they do have a lot of fans who are going to remain with them, and I think you've got people who are happy to have more than one sim and enjoy what they can get from those. But I do sort of wonder about long-term developer interest in X-Plane 12, and I know you have some thoughts on that.
I can tell you, Dulles, I've been simming for over 2 decades, since I was like 7. X-Plane was there then, in a very early iteration, obviously. When I picked simming back up after I took a little hiatus, X-Plane was there then as well. And X-Plane is still here right now. Laminar Research is still here, and they're still going to be here. I would argue that they have the largest, heaviest hardcore base of any of the sims. They're really staunch, and they will fight you about their sim, and their sim leader, Austin, they love him. I mean, it almost gets cultish a little bit, in my opinion. But you know what? They're entitled to their opinion. They like their sim. I've been flying the Challenger. I've been really enjoying flying the Challenger these past couple of days, just to kind of get something different. It gets a little old with the 777 and break it up, and I think it's a fantastic add-on. I think there's a lot you can do with X-Plane just because of the way Laminar set it up, more so than Microsoft at this point. Let's just say that at this point. But there's also a lot of stuff that the community has to do, such as like Lib Turbine, Lib Radio, Lib Electric, all these sorts of plugins, that are kind of community driven. As far as long-term interest, all I can tell you is that both our friend, Professor Crash, who is the head and co-developer of the OMI 707, they have an interest in an external, basically kind of flight model and sim so that they can bring it to Microsoft Flight Simulator as well. Basically, what I'm trying to say is both OMI and Hotstart have said that they do have a desire to investigate making their add-ons sim agnostic.
Right.
And so I think that can speak to maybe the long-term viability. I don't see people like Afelis. I don't see him jumping ship because he'd have to basically rewrite his entire plane in C++. I've talked to him offline about that. He has zero desire to do that. And Flight Factor, they seem very, very in the X-Plane camp.
Yeah, I wonder about Tolis
as well. And so, there's a lot of small developers. You have a FlyJSim, these kind of people. I also, though, I will say, I don't get the sense that in X-Plane 12, that a lot of the developers are full-time. That's their bread and butter. That's how they're putting food on the table. I get very much, and it's probably the same in X-Plane, X-Plane, in Microsoft Flight Simulator as well. I probably, I don't think there are a lot of developers like AnyBuilds or Orbex or people like that where that's their job, right, full-time. But I will say in X-Plane, I don't get the sense that that's a lot of developers, if any of them, really. I think they all have real day jobs. And so, does that change if they bring their products into X-Plane? I don't know. What does it mean for X-Plane 12? I don't know either. I know Laminar is going to be there. They have commercial contracts. They have mobile. They have all this stuff. But as far as third parties wanting to develop, we'll wait and see. We've obviously, clearly, AnyBuilds is kind of the big one. And obviously, that's a really huge bone of contention with the Laminar / X-Plane crowd, feeling betrayed because AnyBuilds, decided to go where the money is. But at the end of the day, people are going to go where the money is. If you're doing this to make money, put food on the table, that's what people are going to do.
Yeah.
And so, you just said it yourself, 15 million unique users. So if you have an add-on that's $10, every single user buys it, that's $150 million. I'm not, obviously that's very,
right, that's never going to happen.
that's never going to happen.
But your market's big. Your market is
huge.
Big.
It's huge,
Right. And if you look, one of the things we saw was that Microsoft and Asobo, particularly Microsoft, because they're doing the agreements with other developers to come on board and develop for this platform. They have expanded the reach into multiple developers, some of whom are quite large. Mm-hmm. Maybe not all those people are spending every minute of their day, as you said, on Microsoft Flight Simulator, but presumably Microsoft and Asobo are making a huge effort to expand out what's going on from a programming perspective just for the base sim. Forget about third-party add-ons. You're talking about hundreds of people now who are engaged in some element or another, either full-time, part-time, or some aspect of development for this sim. That is a staggering number of people.
It is.
I don't know how many people, work on, I don't know, pick a AAA title that somebody loves to play, some of the big games. But my guess is they're starting to get up into those kinds of numbers. So
those are pretty large. We'll go ahead and say that the AAA title gaming industry, like a Rockstar, obviously is kind of like a Rockstar or EA Sports. Those are massive development. Sure. These are places that literally talk about layoffs in the same sense that like United Health Group talks about layoffs.
Okay. Well, fine, but
You know what I mean?
nevertheless,
Like,
for flight
I know.
sim, which is sort of a niche
Yeah,
business,
sure,
if you will,
100%.
it's moving into a scenario where it's getting played on the the Xbox showcase.
Yeah, for sure.
It's reaching a certain level and a certain audience and a certain size, and they've got an active marketplace that I'm sure is very important to them from a revenue
Yeah.
perspective. Which
hmm
I know some of these other games have got download DLC and things like that, but
Yeah.
obviously that's a big part of a flight sim. Which okay, so from the sim perspective, I agree with you. I think X-Plane is going to hang around. I think Austin has found his way of doing business, and I think
Yep.
like Lockheed, but in a very different way, they've also got other contracts that are important to them and keeping
Yeah.
them going. Um, and then from a developer's perspective, I just can't imagine if it, as you say, you're using it to put food on your table, that you're not focusing your attention on Microsoft Flight Simulator. Even someone like
Sure.
FS Labs, which has commercial work, I mean, they've made it very clear they're going to come to Microsoft Flight Simulator. They might be late to the game
Of
versus
course.
some other people, but it's coming. Which, by the way, also a possibility for a little surprise this year. Maybe they might surprise us. They keep making little hints on
Yeah.
their website about or on their forum about maybe something coming soon. We'll see what it is. But regardless, we know that they've got stuff coming, and just where the
Sure.
attention has gone. So I think that's a big one. From a user perspective, I just love the opportunity that we have here. That's what I love. I mean, I love that. Well, no matter what your niche is, that something is coming or something is already out there for you,
Yeah. Sure.
including the freeware scenario in Microsoft Flight Simulator is quite good when you look at what's on FlightSim.to.
Yeah.
They're working on their World Hub as well. That'll add sort of like the X-Plane, the community-driven backend that they have as well, whose name I'm forgetting, but I think we're going to see more of that
I
as
know. I
well.
know what you're talking about.
Yes, I
Yeah.
just can't
It's
think of the
the.
name. It's the
Yeah.
portal. It's the whatever it is. But
Yeah. Some portal. Yeah.
yeah, you can get scenery and things like that from it, and that's handy. Even Laminar has recognized they it's in their interest to have a marketplace, and they're working on a marketplace. You look
Yeah.
at where that's all going in terms of being a user, and I just think as long as you've got can keep investing in the new stuff that comes out and the hardware to run it, it looks amazing. I just feel like we are winners as the consumer.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I would agree. I mean, I think the only thing that's kind of interesting in this whole setup, especially with 2024, is the idea that like I think Airsoft, who was doing Nav Data Pro, which is kind of like the it's not an arch nemesis, but it's the alternative offering to Navigraph, who use Jeppesen, which is a Boeing thing,
right.
versus Lido, which is a Lufthansa integrated dispatch option. Um, so yeah, it's the interesting thing there. Sorry, my wife decided to text me and it popped up on the screen.
No problem.
But yeah, um, Nav Airsoft Nav Data Pro, they're not they're discontinuing that service.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that for flight in I think Lido is going to be default
It's
in
not
the
100%
Microsoft.
clear to me what it's going to be, but something is coming.
Yeah,
Yes. That we're going to have
I
some
think
chart
that
options.
there's a possibility for chart options that may include Lido, and there at least for me it would make sense if that were the case, and then Airsoft's pulling out. But there's also the possibility that like their sales weren't there.
Yeah.
Um, you know,
Right.
so that was an interesting one. Um, Other than and I say all that because I just want us as a community to understand and be careful that when we don't have more options in terms of platform, especially, it can become a little monotonous.
Mm-hmm.
We did kind of have this back pre Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020, pre Asobo entry, where the hobby, quite frankly, got stale.
Yep.
And it was dying because the cost of the add-on. Of course, the P3D people are all charging 120, 130 bucks because it says, oh, well, it's a simulator. It's not a
Right.
game.
140.
And yeah, 140, 150 if you were buying the FS Labs A320. I think that was kind of the high price item there. And so I think we really get into the space where, I'm cautiously optimistic. And just purely from the kind of core capitalist sense of we want competition, right?
Sure.
We don't want it to just be one sim that's going to dominate everything. But honestly, if we're going to call this a duopoly, because obviously we're saying P3D is relegated to a legacy status now, and I think everybody here is going to agree with that. I think the P3D people at Lockheed Martin probably agree with that, and they're probably more than happy,
or they know it
because
anyway.
it means they know it. That they're probably more than happy because it means all they have to do with it now is update whatever level D sims they have, and obviously work on their internal stuff that they're doing with that product, which is why they bought it in the first place. But it's kind of a lopsided duopoly, right? I mean, if we're going
Very
off
much.
the Navigraph, if we go off the Navigraph,
Aerosoft comparison.
yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, if we go off of no, not Navigraph, Aerosoft, more so Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 X-Plane, where I think
one is the
it's like 80
800-pound
something.
gorilla.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's more of what I'm saying is we want to be careful when we're talking about a dominance in the marketplace. It's just what I'm saying. Honestly, I hope Lockheed Martin or somebody comes out with a product that's going to rival these two, because the thing is that's when we really win as a consumer. Yes, obviously we have one platform and we're going to have all these people and it's going to have all these options, but it's also that one platform, right? We don't really want to be stuck on one platform. So that's kind of my 2 cents as maybe kind of the dissenting opinion as far as like,
devil's advocate.
I want Microsoft. Yeah, devil's advocate. Making sure that, yes, I want Microsoft to grow. I think it's a great product. It's my preferred sim, even though right now I'm kind of using the Challenger, but my idea on sims is I want sims for add-ons. I don't really care about the base platform. It's basically the base platform is an image generator for me. So kind of like how, kind of how Airsoft PSX or Aerowinks PSX, I should say, is utilized currently.
Yes.
But, we want more options. And so I'm hoping maybe Dovetail, that was a joke. I was going to say Dovetail makes a sim. That was a joke because Dovetail is kind of talk about another interesting story. Anyway, so yeah, no, it's gonna be good for us. And if you like Microsoft Flight Simulator, if you're a fan of it, I think the sky's the limit here. But we want to make sure that we're not going to go back to where we were before, where it was kind of like X-Plane was just kind of like, well, floating along, and then Microsoft was just this big ship that was just floating right alongside so.
Well, I think since we've hit our hour, but I think just to wrap it up on the note is that this mid-year 2024 has shown us that the market is continuing to expand. The options are continuing to expand. You talk about X-Plane. They've had significant updates this year, and there's more coming. And there are planes coming for that sim too. And there are updates coming for that sim. And we, on the user side, are continuing to benefit from this rolling approach here. And I also point out, for those who say, you can't bring a second product to the market, like you were talking about scenery, or even a plane. You can't bring another, you can't bring another 737. The answer to that question is, with the number of people who presumably are continuing to come into this hobby, and also the number of people who haven't bought one of these add-ons yet, if you come in and you're doing a better job and you got a better product as a developer, the opportunity for sales is still there. They're not gone. And,
absolutely.
And that's, I think one of the things that a lot of folks have missed and are missing. And so
I think there's, like you said, I definitely think there is a kind of a bonus for being first to the market. But if your product's not great, being first to the market's only going to get you that peak of sales, and then something's going to come along, and then you're going to dry up, right? So you're absolutely right.
Yep.
You know.
Yep. Well, everyone, I believe that we have got a potential for a very interesting next Wheels Up Live podcast. It may be pre-recorded. We shall see. We hope we've got it coming together in terms of timing. If not, you'll see us back here live. But in the meantime, we thank you all for tuning in. As usual, if you subscribe, we appreciate it. Thumbs up, appreciated. And we're very glad to be back this week. And thanks, everyone.
Yes, we are. Thank you, guys. You guys have a good rest of your week.
Absolutely.